Have you ever felt like you are pouring from an empty cup? Do you have a hard time finding a way to take a break? Do you feel squeezed between caring for your parents and your kids? If any of those ring true for you, you are in the right place. Our speaker today calls herself a recovering caregiver. When I read that, I laughed. I love that. Caring for her mother for 6 years, including hospice care in her home. She is a professional speaker and a wonderful storyteller. In fact, her stories have been broadcast on the Moth Story Hour on NPR, and one of her videos went viral in a good way, and got over 1 million views. She is able to combine stories with creative problem-solving ideas. She has found that good humor is the secret sauce to her success and to yours. She is a certified caregiving consultant and has written 2 award-winning books, all about self-care. After 2 successful books, years of professional speaking, Breeda has recently done something that scared the living daylights out of her. She wrote and performed a one-woman play called Mrs. Kelly's Journey Home. It's the story of her family's immigration from Ireland and her journey as her mother's caregiver as she developed dementia. It's filled with heart, humor, and lots of tea. Breeda is in the midst of planning a tour to take this life-affirming show on the road. Now it's time to figure out how your stories can help you find light during your dark days. Please welcome Breeda Miller.
Thank you so much, Jen. I appreciate it very much. I'm delighted to be here. I really wish I was there in person. I've never been to Iowa. I understand it's beautiful, a beautiful state, and I look forward to having an opportunity to come to your state, maybe meet some of you in person. Thank you for taking the time. I know as a caregiver, taking a break, taking the time to sit down and focus on something can be so hard. Sometimes you think it's not even worth it because you have to plan, you have to make sure people are fed, people are clothed, people are clean, people are napping, whatever, so that you could do something just for yourself. So hats off to you for doing that and for being here. And I hope that, well, I know I will do my best to make it worth your while and to give you some ideas to help you think of things maybe in a little bit different way, maybe put a smile on your face, and your eyes might leak a little bit. So just making sure I warn you about that. So Jan said, I was an accidental, well, I'm a recovering caregiver. I actually was an accidental caregiver. I didn't know anything. I have no medical training. I didn't know anything. All I knew was that I love my mom. And when she really began to decline and developed congestive heart failure, which led to vascular dementia. Well, let's just say I'm the only daughter with 4 brothers, also known as the default caregiver. And the good thing was I was very lucky. I had a great relationship with my mom, and that was good because on the good days, that made it good. And on the bad days, it made it bearable. But you know better than I do that this is not an easy road. And it's something that even, you know, what's interesting is when I speak to a lot of professional caregivers, we talk about burnout and we talk about the stress of working as a professional caregiver. But many times in their own families, the family assumes, oh, well, you're the professional. So after you're working all day taking care of everybody else's family members. Oh, my director of marketing. After a day of caring for their families, caring for other people, they are then expected to be the caregiver for their own grandparent or parent or whoever needs care. So they kind of get it from both sides. But they've told me that there is no stress like family caregiver stress, that it's 24/7, you are the person. And so we all know how stressful and how difficult that can be. So Jan mentioned that whole idea of being squeezed between generations. You've probably heard the term the sandwich generation. And I talk about this a lot. And I was the poster child of the sandwich generation. And one of my friends, she works in theater and she makes props and she's very creative. And I say that in a kind way. She's wonderful, but she also frightens me when she has ideas. And she said to me, Breeda, you need a visual aid and I'm going to make you one. I said, okay. So I'm going to share it with you today because it doesn't see the light of day very much. It's a little bit chilly here today and I thought it might help me out. So have you ever been in the caregiver sandwich? If you're in the sandwich generation, and what that means is when you are caring for a generation on either side. So one slice of bread might be your mom or your dad or both. And the other side might be your kids, but everybody's sandwich is different. Now, I do want to tell you, if you are also caring for your grandchildren, that's a club sandwich, and that's just too many carbs. I don't even want to go there. But the thing about a sandwich that I'd hope that you can remember is the essence of the sandwich is the filling. And you are the filling in the caregiver sandwich. You know, when you order a sandwich, do you ever order, I'd like a whole wheat sandwich, please? Or could I have a French bread sandwich? No, you don't. You order it based on the filling, don't you? That's what's so important. So if you want to have a BLT or a Reuben or a grilled cheese, or even a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, it is the filling that is the essence of the sandwich. You are the filling. And if you don't take care of the filling, all you have is toast and maybe a bit of sandwich here. I don't know. So when you think about how important you are to keep things together, it's important because, you know, when you get burned out, when you get tired and cranky, you're not good to anyone, right? Much less others, but you're not good to yourself. But caregivers are the worst when it comes to taking care of ourselves, aren't we? I know that I would feel guilty if I was out running errands and I popped into TJ Maxx, my mom's favorite store, and she wasn't with me. And, you know, we live out in the country, so we're quite a distance from the nearest TJ Maxx store. And one time I came home and she saw I had the telltale white bag. And she said, oh, did you go to TJ Maxx? And I was like, yeah. And I felt so guilty because I didn't drive 20 miles to pick her up and then take her there and with the walker and the wheelchair and all that business. I was just flitting around the store, enjoying myself, looking at everything. So when we take time to do things for ourselves, we can often feel guilty about that. But I hope today, after some of the stories I'm going to share with you, that you might feel a little bit less guilt. You might feel inclined to make time for yourself. My favorite go-to saying is to take a break before you break. So Laura, you mentioned that you're going to be baking a pie today. So I hope that you can appreciate this story and maybe you'll come over and help me. I don't know. But my mom, she was Mary Kelly. She was this delightful little Irish lady, and I'd call her a homemaker rather than a housewife. She wasn't a fancy cook, but we were always well fed, especially when it came to her baked goods. And she could make scones and soda bread with her eyes closed. Her brown bread was legendary, but it was her pie, her apple pie, that was her claim to fame. She had these magic fingers, and she could take a scoop of flour and a lump of butter and make this delicate, flaky pastry just out of nothing. And yeah, so I did not inherit her magic fingers or her ability to make this fabulous pastry. Well, Mom had developed vascular dementia and she was in hospice care beginning in July. And by the fall, she said that the hospice nurses told us that they didn't think we would have her for much longer. And so we decided that we would not wait till the official Thanksgiving. My brothers live out of state. And that I thought, oh, okay, well, we'll just have a big family gathering. We'll have a family celebration and they'll come here with their family and we'll celebrate mom while she's still able to enjoy it. It's a good theory. What could go wrong? So yeah, the truth is not only would I have to take care of mom, but I would have to feed and entertain my brothers and their families. So my brothers were super excited about coming to visit and all be together. And I have a big old farmhouse, so it, wasn't out of the question. Well, they called my mom to tell her how excited they were to see her. And my brother Donna called and he mentioned not only could he not wait to see her, he couldn't wait for a taste of her delicious apple pie. And that's when things went bad. Every day after that phone call, she would start asking about making the apple pie. Are we making the apple pie today? The boys love my pie. Are we making the apple pie? Well, I had my hands full and I was not a pie maker. This was not my thing. I did not inherit my mom's skills and I just kept trying to change the subject and she wouldn't let it go. She became obsessed. She'd ask me, did you get the good apples, the Granny Smith? The boys love my pie. Well, I was, cleaning the house. I was trying to figure out the menu. I have 3 young teenagers. I was in the caregiver sandwich in a big way. And I was really getting stressed out. And I could not believe this additional pressure now that I was feeling to make the apple pie. So I called my brother. What were you thinking when you told mom you couldn't wait to taste her apple pie? That's all she talks about now. And she says how the boys love her pie and she won't let it go. And you know what that means? She can't make pie anymore. That means I have to make the pie. And I'm not good at making pie. And he said, don't worry about it. I'll bring a pie. So that settled her down for a little bit. And she stopped asking for a few days. Well, the big day rolled around and, the table is set. We're getting going. And she starts asking about the pie. And at that precise moment, my brother knocks on the door and he's standing there with an apple pie in a white cardboard box with a cellophane window on the top, the word Kroger printed on the side, and to add insult to injury, a big orange sticker that said half off. My mother refused even one bite of this store-bought pie. And then my brother made it worse when he told her, oh, but mom, it's good. It tastes just like your pie. Well, she might have dementia, but she knows apple pie. Well, we were able to change the subject and avoid Piegate, and they all left. And the day ended well. I was wiped out. The next day, I'm putting away her good china that we used, and I was just exhausted. And she asks me, are we making the apple pie? What? The party was over. They were here. We don't need to do this anymore. Well, she wouldn't let it go. It became an obsession. I would be loading the washer, and I would hear the rumble of the walker in the hallway. And then she'd say, is today the day? Are we making the apple pie? The boys love my pie. Apple pie, apple pie. If I heard apple pie one more time, I was going to lose my mind. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't take it anymore. I was not sleeping well. I was the poster child of a burned out, stressed out caregiver. For the first time in my life, I realized if I didn't get professional help, I could go before her. The apple pie was just going to drive me out of my mind. So I found the name of a counselor and I made an appointment. He asked me why I'd come. Well, I lit in on my list of complaints. I told him how busy I was, how much I had to do, how exhausting it was, and how hard it was taking care of everybody. And I told her about having this big party and my brother's there, and how that, my mom was obsessed with making this apple pie, and there was no need to make the apple pie anymore because they were already here. The party was over. We did not need to do this. And besides, I don't do apple pie. I am not good at apple pie. I don't even like apple pie. And it was just going to make me crazy. If I heard apple pie one more time, it was going to push me over the edge. And he was such a good listener. I knew he'd be supportive, that he'd support me, and he would say, you have to set boundaries and you can't do everything. And then he looked at me and he set down his pad of paper and he leaned forward and he said, Breeda, you got to make the damn pie. I know you're busy. Pick a date on the calendar, write it down, tell your mother, get the ingredients, and then just do it. You won't regret it. Fine. Well, I got all the ingredients and the day rolled around. I cleared off the afternoon, nothing else but this. I got an apron out for her and one for me. And she was able to sit up at the counter. And I handed her her favorite little wooden handled paring knife. She didn't believe in apple peelers. And she tried to peel the apple. And she used to be able to peel an apple with one long curling ribbon of peel. She couldn't do that any longer, but she got that look in her eyes. And it reminded me of when I was a little girl, and she used to take my long brown hair and curl it into ringlets with those magic fingers and use bobby pins to set the ringlets. Well, I finished peeling all the apples, and then I sliced them as she directed. And we put them in the big bowl with all the spices, and I handed her the wooden spoon, and she was able to give it a good stir. And then it was time for the pastry. I did my best. She directed me, and I rolled the dough, and I gave it a few whacks, and she gave it a whack, and there was flour everywhere, on the floor, on the counter, on me, on her, and on the dough. I looked like the Pillsbury Doughboy. And then I wrestled it into the pie plate. And then we took turns placing the apple slices just so. Then I put the lid, the top crust on, and she asked me for the little paring knife again and a scrap of dough. And she cut out 3 little leaves, and I placed them on the top of the pie crust. Put it in the oven. And then we sat at the table. And when I took it out of the oven, I put it in front of her. And the look on her face, it was something. She was able to eat a few bites along with a nice cup of tea. She put her fork down, and then she said, "This is the best pie I ever made." And I felt so ashamed. How could I have been so blind and deaf? This was so obvious. What an easy solution this was. I was so busy with doing all the things, being the caregiver, watching the schedule, the medicine, the appointments, changing the bedding, doing the wash, taking care of the world, that I didn't see the value of taking an afternoon to make an apple pie. And it was such a profound moment of realization for me when I realized, I was grateful for having been called out before it was too late, that I don't have regrets now, because I realized, it was never about the pie. It was about making the pie. So when you have a situation where the person in your care is asking for something and you either don't want to do it or can't do it or can't figure it out, take a step back and think about maybe how important it is to the person maybe it's not so important to you, or maybe you're not realizing how important it was or is. So I share that with you because it was such a big lesson and such an important thing, such a seemingly small thing. But sometimes it's those little things that are really the big things. But if you are burned out, if you are not sleeping, if you are not taking care of yourself, as I wasn't, you can't be your best self. You can't have the luxury of taking an afternoon to do something that is not on the schedule, that is not, terribly productive, or you have to put other things to the side. And that's an important thing to remember about priorities and what really matters. And when I look back on that now, I am so grateful that I took that one afternoon to make that apple pie with my mother. It's hard to listen and it's hard to hear, but it is so, so very important. So a couple of the things that I want to share with you, I ended up writing. So one of the things I knew as a caregiver, an accidental caregiver or otherwise, there was so much that I didn't know. And so, of course, I got books and I had all these books. And these books became a pile of good intentions, because whenever I had the chance to sit down and open a book, I would get maybe 1 or 2 pages in and I would be out for the count. I would fall asleep because I was so tired. And I thought, I need something that's going to be easy to access, that's going to be easy to read, but that's really going to help me. So I wrote the book that I wished I had. And it's called The Caregiver Coffeebreak. This was the first one. And it's really small. My friends tell me that, it's distilled wisdom. So it is not overwhelming, but each page has a tip and an idea, and often has a link to a place to get more information. But let me share you one of the ideas that is in here that is a lot of fun. It's called mental bingo. And the important part is, I think we all know what bingo is, but mental bingo is a little bit different. It's really important that this stays mental. Okay. Do not write this stuff down. Do not put it in your computer. We want no evidence. We don't want anything to be subpoenaed. Okay. Just saying. But what you want to do is, I'll read a little bit to you. You can see what it is. Mind games are one of the best ways to deal with difficult people and difficult situations. I play mental bingo daily. In my mind, I have a giant bingo card. At the top, I have 5 categories or more. It's yours. And you can fill it with the words or behaviors that absolutely drive you crazy. I gave this idea. I did a presentation at the University of Michigan to a group of administrative assistants. It was a breakfast thing at like 8 o'clock in the morning. And the idea is, when someone has a behavior that you can't change, this is not your 2-year-old, okay? This is someone you cannot change their behavior. Either it's a supervisor or someone who has dementia or something that they're not going to change. But you have to find a way that you can react to it in a way that is more productive, more positive, or at the very least drives you a little bit less crazy, okay? So let's say there is a question they ask a lot, or a behavior that just makes you crazy. You put this in one of the boxes in the bingo card, and every time they do it, you do a mental check off. When they do it 5 times, you get to say bingo. It's strangely satisfying. I can't really tell you why. Anyway, I did this for this group, and they were not caregivers. They were, office workers. And by 11 o'clock, I had gotten emails of people sending me notes saying, Breeda, I've said bingo 5 times already. But it's a great release. So instead of getting, the behavior is going to happen. They're going to do that thing. They're going to ask about the thing. My mom used to sing this really annoying song to her little dog, her little Yorkshire Terrierist. And it drove me crazy. I put it in the bingo card. Finally, I figured it out. And then when she would start to sing it, I would give it a little check off. So then some days I was thinking, haven't checked that box in a couple of days. I wonder when that's going to happen. And so instead of getting irritated about it, I'm not saying I look forward to it. That would be a stretch, but I had the ability to respond in a way that was at the very least, slightly amusing. And I felt it was a way I could handle my response rather than being cranky or irritated about something that I had absolutely no control over. So mental bingo is one of the ideas that is in this book, The Caregiver Coffeebreak, and it can be a lot of fun. Don't ever tell anyone you're playing mental bingo about them, though. Okay, that would be bad. That would defeat the purpose, and you don't want to get into that. This is personal, private. You don't need to share, okay? Unless you want to share with your friends, you can do that, of course. So bingo is another way to just find ways to do things that are a bit more fun. So one of the things I'd like you to do is, if you had a magic wand, well, in fact, I don't want to go there yet. I want to talk about my mascot, my companion. And in fact, I think, Laura, you might have mentioned this as well. One of the key attributes of being a successful caregiver, and when I mean successful caregiver, what I mean is that you stay alive beyond the life of the person you're caring for, okay? That it doesn't kill you, that you find ways to take care of yourself. So at the end of your caregiving days, it's not what's left of you, it's the best of you, okay? So anyway, here he is, Gumby. He is my little mascot. And this is the phrase I think of: blessed are the flexible, for they shall not get bent out of shape. And you have to go with the flow. I often, because I'm an actor and I've done a lot of theater and different programs, I often thought caring for my mom with dementia was like a day at the Improv without the applause, because I never knew who was going to come out of her bedroom every day. Was it going to be my delightful, sweet little Irish mom? Or was it going to be a really cranky, irritated person who doesn't know where she is and isn't really sure who I am? Or was it going to be someone who thought that she was a little child and was thinking about going to school or something else? And the biggest lesson that I learned is, as long as it's not involving something that's dangerous, nothing that's unsafe, like I'm not handing her the car keys, but just go with the flow and to not try to bring them into your reality.
That's why I got you on the phone. Did you ever get your father?
The idea is to make sure that you enter their reality. And then if you need to nudge them along the way, honor, show it. I think it's about maintaining dignity and respect, that you can find a way to ask questions, enter their reality, and then move them into the space that is going to work with whatever else needs to happen that day. And it just makes things a lot less stressful, because if you think that you're going to be successful bringing them into your reality, you're setting yourself up for just a world of disappointment and a whole lot of work. So let's try and find ways to make things a bit easier. So speaking of self-care, one of the things that I think about is having a list of fun stuff, so that, let's say you are granted 30 minutes of peace, 30 minutes to do whatever you would like to do. And it may or may not involve spending any money, okay? But maybe make this list, because even just the act of creating a list of things, boy, if I had 30 minutes to myself, let's get greedy, an hour, let's go crazy here. That if you had that kind of time, what would you do? Make that list. And then those times when you are stressed out and you're over the top, you can think about those things and say, you know what, next Thursday at 3:00, I'm doing it. So maybe it's going to the library. That was one of my favorite things to do. It was nearby, so I didn't have a lot of travel time. It was free, which was always good. But you could sit in the library and look at magazines. You could pick out movies that you might want to watch later, and maybe a movie you want to watch, not a movie that you think, well, I think my husband would like this. Oh, the kids will probably enjoy this. Oh, I think mom would like this. No. Pick a movie maybe you would like to watch. How crazy is that? Maybe it's taking a bubble bath. Locks on bathroom doors are there for a reason. So that if you're in there and everybody is safe and looked after, so that you can relax and take a bubble bath. Not just a quick shower to say, how fast can I get in and get cleaned up and get out of there, because the world is going to fall apart while I'm in the bathroom. So make these dates with yourself. Think about what it might be, but have this little list available to you. Maybe it's going for a walk outside to in a nearby park, or maybe just in your own neighborhood. Maybe it is going for a drive. I have a friend that her favorite way to just kind of decompress is she gets in her car, she turns on the radio. I don't know whether she has a CD player or Spotify or some satellite or just a regular radio station. She turns the volume up loud, rock and roll. She keeps the windows up because she's not a good singer. And she belts out the lyrics to whatever song is on. And when she's done, it's kind of like her time. It's her thing. She loves doing that. So it's not about, I have friends who, bless their hearts, like to go for a run. That would not be me. That would be a punishment. That would not be my idea of relaxation. I like to go for a walk. I'm good with that. Napping is also an Olympic sport. If there was an Olympic sport for napping, I could probably medal. I'm not going to say that I'm easy, but I sleep pretty much anywhere because I need that kind of rest. So when you have an opportunity to do it, take it. A lot of times caregivers are really resistant to getting help or asking for help. If you are lucky enough to have people that will offer to stay with your loved one, who will offer to do things to take something off your plate, please take it. Because you know what? You're giving them a gift. They see how tired you are. They see how much you're doing, and they want to help. They don't know what to do. So if you can give them specific instructions that would really help you, you would really be giving them a gift, because they're going to feel good. They're going to feel they were able to help you. So it's hard to accept help sometimes. The other thing is, if someone asks to give you a respite weekend where you could go somewhere, oh no, I couldn't go because mom likes the way I do it. I know how to do her meds, and I know how to do things the way she likes it, and she wouldn't like it if somebody else was here. Well, you know what? As long as you know this person is a responsible, good person, and that your loved one would be safe, maybe it's good for them to miss you. Maybe it's good for them to have someone else do something. And then when you come back, they can really appreciate that the way you do it is the way they like it. And that's not a bad thing at all. So think about these ideas in different ways that you might be able to find ways to take a break before you break. The final story that I want to share with you is my favorite. And I'm a slow learner. That's all I have to tell you. When my mom was really near the end of her life, first of all, I should tell you, with her dementia, she often thought there were two Breedas. And she would complain to me about the bad Breeda, who would make her take mind-altering drugs like Advil, or who would not let her drink tea during the night, or other really evil things, always trying to get her to take more medicine. But she would complain to me about the bad Breeda, which honestly I enjoyed, because then I could get the inside scoop and hear what she was really worried about. Well, mom was really failing, and she was anxious and worried. And my mom she loved to travel. That was her favorite thing. And she had been to Ireland, back home to Ireland many times. She had traveled to Africa. She loved to travel. Well, one day she said to me, Breeda, I want you to get my good suitcase. I need it. I said, Mom, what, are you going somewhere? At this point, she couldn't even leave the house. Well, I don't know. I'm going on a journey. I said, well, where are you going? I don't know, but I'm going somewhere, and I need my suitcase. So I got her suitcase. I put it next to her chair, and she never put anything in it, but it seemed to calm her. And that was okay for a while. And then she called out to me and she said, Breeda, I want you to get me the bus schedule to Dublin. And at this point now, she's, up half the night. I'm up during the night. I got a baby monitor so that I can hear every sound that she makes during the night. I am not doing well. I have my teenage kids who are going through driver's training, just a whole lot of stuff going on. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to respond. So I changed the subject. I said, Mom, would you like a cup of tea? And I tried to divert, but she would not let this go. Every day, she would ask me about the bus schedule to Dublin. Finally, I said, Mom, I tried to reason, which was never a good idea. I said, Mom, but the bus schedules from Michigan to Ireland are not very reliable. And by the way, how would you get up into the bus? Oh no, they've gotten much better. And besides, the conductor would help me. She was just obsessed with this. And I was not responding positively. I was just trying to change a subject. I didn't know what to say. Well, there was no way I could take her to Ireland. She couldn't even leave the house at this point. I didn't know what to do. Well, one day she was sitting in her chair in the family room and she was rubbing her hands together and she was just really anxious. And I went over to her chair and I said, Mom, what's wrong? You seem very upset. It's that Breeda. I keep asking her for the bus schedule to Ireland. She just won't get it for me. She's horrible. And I looked at her and something clicked in my brain. And I said, Mom, don't you worry about that bitch. I'm here. I'll figure it out. I had no idea what I was going to do. I went over to my desk. I sat at my computer and I closed my eyes and I thought, what could I do? How could I help her? What could ease her anxiety? And I remembered how much she loved to travel and how excited she would be when she had booked a trip. And I thought, what if I got her a ticket or something? So I Googled fake boarding pass on my computer. And up on the screen appeared a template for a fake boarding pass. So I started to fill it in. Departing airport, DTW, Detroit, no problem. Arriving airport. I was going to type DUB for Dublin. Thought, what if I went one better? I typed heaven. It took it. Travel dates, open. I looked at this template and it was first class. Perfect. And then I saw that it said American Airlines on it. This was a random Google image that came up. My brother works for American Airlines and my mother is very proud and tells everyone this was perfect. I found some cardstock and I put it in my printer. I hit print and within a minute in my hands was a boarding pass. And I walked over to Mom's chair and I looked at her and I said, Mom, you don't have to worry anymore. You're good to go. And I handed her the boarding pass. And she looked at it. And then she got this clarity in her eyes. And she was with it. And she said, oh, this is great. I'm going to show this to Father Will. And over the next few weeks, as people came to visit her for the last time, instead of being sad and anxious, she was excited to show them. She'd say, wait till I show you what Breeda got for me. And she would whip it out of the pocket of her walker and share with them the boarding pass. And they'd all have a good laugh. And they told her she was indeed blessed. I've witnessed many miracles in my life, but I think finding that boarding pass online and seeing the look of delight in my mother's eyes was my favorite. She kept that boarding pass near her and she never asked me again about the bus schedule. There are times in life when we really listen and we can have that kind of mental agility that magic can happen. In your life, there are opportunities. There are opportunities for that kind of magic. And one of the things I'd like to suggest to you to help you remember these stories is that if you can find a little candle, one of these little battery operated candles, maybe you have one and you set it out on the table for holidays, or maybe something left over from Halloween. But my suggestion is to take this candle and don't put it somewhere decorative. Put it somewhere special for you, maybe on your desk or on the windowsill over the sink, or maybe on your bathroom vanity or something. And when you're feeling low, turn it on. Turn it on and look at it and think about, what is the light in my life? What is a moment that surprised me? What is a moment that touched my heart? And maybe you'll remember one of my stories, but what I really hope is that you will remember your stories. They think of a magical moment where you did something, or the person in your care said something that really touched your heart, and that said, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. It is about your ability to find light during dark days. My name is Breeda Miller, and I hope that you have enjoyed this time. Jan, did you have any thoughts?
Okay, Breeda. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I know most of us are muted, so we can't really clap, but we can kind of do a virtual clap. Oh my goodness. I do have a little bit of tears. That we really, really enjoyed your stories. That was beautiful. Are you able to stick with us just for a couple more minutes?
Sure.
If
In
anybody
fact,
has any questions, I don't know
absolutely. Either, you can ask the question if you'd like, or you could put it in the chat. And then Jan, if you want to read them, that'd be great. And I didn't hold up. This is the second book. So the other book is Prevent Burnout and Bring Greater Joy to Your Life. And the first book is specific to caring for aging parents and how to take care of yourself in those circumstances, with a lot of resources and ideas. And the second one it's similar, but it's more about mindset. If you're just really having a hard time getting into the groove of, it's too much work. I can't even think about taking care of myself because I just have too much to do. This is the book that would help you get there. And then, so the first half is about mindset and the second half is about tips and ideas. So anyway, just wanted to make sure you knew what they were, because we're going to give them, there'll be 4 total. And I will sign them personally to the winners and send them off to you. So you can choose whichever book you prefer.
Oh, that's going to be wonderful to be able to choose. That I like that. Thank you. If
anybody has any questions, I'm happy to.
Yeah, I thought I saw a raised hand on someone. If they would like, and maybe she did that only on accident. I'm not sure, but it was Christina. So if that was you and you had a question, you can either unmute yourself or you can put it in our chat box. Or if anybody has anything else, any question or just even a comment for Breeda, feel free to unmute yourself. And if we get anybody to put something in the chat box, because I know how that goes. Oh wait, we do. So we do have a question here from Sherry. What suggestions do you have on how we support a family caregiver when we are 500 miles away? What would have helped you?
Yes, and you know what? My brothers lived out of state, and first of all, they told me all the time how much they appreciated me. Now, let me just say this. I have 4 brothers. 3 of them were fabulous and supportive. The 4th one Well, let's just say there's one in every family. So, but the three would tell me all the time how much they appreciated what I did, how grateful they were. That meant a lot. They didn't just take it for granted that they knew that I knew. So just reminding them and telling them is number one. If you can, there's a lot of different things. In fact, I was doing a piece the other day about how virtually, one of the blessings, if we can even think there's a blessing from a pandemic, is the rise of services that are provided. So for example, you can send stuff to people's house almost anywhere, right? So whether it's a local grocery store, whether it is Amazon, whatever it is, maybe it's a surprise package for the caregiver of something that you know they like. You know, do they love dark chocolate? You know, can you imagine just out of the blue getting a little gift for you? It's not your birthday, it's not anything, but it's a treat, and it isn't necessarily, you know, an expensive thing. So a surprise gift of something that you know the person likes. Another thing that you can do long distances is there some bit of the responsibility that they can handle. So one of my brothers lives in Florida, and he handles some of the Social Security issues or insurance issues or other things that were not my favorite thing to do. He didn't mind it. He was pretty good at it. So he could take that off my plate. So if there's some element of bill paying or following up on an insurance claim or some annoying thing that you could do long distance, that would be a huge gift. Another thing would be, well, think about services like groceries, or maybe a weekly delivery of something that would be great. But phone calls, sending cards, making sure that the person who is in the trenches, who's doing the daily work, knows that you appreciate it. That's so important. And I think that I'm still very grateful that my brothers were very clear about that. The other thing is, whenever I had to make a decision, they would tell me, Breeda, you're the one who's there. You see what's going on. They knew that I was on the case and that she had great doctors. And when a decision had to be made, they didn't give me grief. They didn't question me. They didn't give me a hard time. They didn't suggest that, well, why didn't you do that? Or something like that. And I was very grateful for that. So I don't know if those are helpful suggestions, but those are things that just come to my head.
I think those were really very helpful. Very, very helpful. I actually have a question. Would you like to talk just a little bit about, I'm pretty intrigued about this, but I mean, how do you go about writing a play?
Oh my gosh. You know what? I've asked myself that. Writing this play, my mom, so here's the thing. My mom used to always tell me, you should write a book. You should write a book. Well, I finally am doing what my mother told me. I thought I had to write the book about all of the stories, because as the only daughter, and my mom had all the documents and the photos, and I was never a scrapbooking kind of a person. And I felt this tremendous burden, this responsibility. So when my mom was bedridden for about 4 months, and I would sit with her, and I thought, what could I do that I can keep her company, but that would be something to do. And I thought, you know what I could do? I could take a lot of the family photos that we had and make a digital photo book, because then I wouldn't feel so guilty about me having the original copy of these really very precious photographs. But here was the difference, and maybe because I'm a writer, it was easier for me. I only chose photographs that really had a story. And I decided I would make chapters about my mom before she was married, my dad before he was married, and then them living in Ireland and then living in America, and then, you know, broke it up that way. But through this, I created this wonderful book. And instead of looking at my mom failing and really declining in bed, I spent all this time looking at these pictures of her as this vibrant young woman. And it was such a mentally healthy thing for me to do. And then I was, trying to get her to remember some of the stories, because, the long-term memory is often there. It's the short-term memory that goes away. And sometimes she could remember some great stories. And I was able to call her sister and get verification. But anyway, I had this. And then I was doing some storytelling events. And this guy come up to me, who was the producer. And he said, I want to say 3 words to you. I said, yeah. He said, one woman show. And it blew me away. I thought, what? He said, you have the makings here of an amazing show. And that was 2 years ago. And about 8 months ago, thinking about COVID, and my whole speaking business was virtual, but I wasn't traveling and I wasn't doing a lot of things that I really wanted to do. And I asked myself this big fat question: what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? Meaning, what would I do if I had no fear? And I thought, well, I would write a one-woman show and I would tour all over the country and I would go to Ireland and I would do it. And I just kind of went, ha, 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 ha. And then I talked to Brian, this director, and I said, Brian, if I really wanted to do this, how would this happen? He said, just start writing and then we'll talk. So I started writing and it just happened. And it would have been a 5-hour show, except I was worried about my bladder and the audience bladder. So I could not do that. And then I had to just cut, and just get to the essence of what I wanted to do. And what ended up being is 100 minutes. There is a 15-minute intermission. Again, bladder concerns. And it's wonderful. It's funny. It's raw. I say it's unfiltered, just as my dad's Pall Mall cigarettes were unfiltered. But the first half is talking about my parents' emigration to America, about learning to. The director of marketing must be the dreaded mailman is here. Let me just mute for, okay, good. My husband's got him. Anyway, so this is the piece that was one of the posters. And this is a photograph. Can you see it? It is my mom, and she is on a beach in Ireland. And it was so typical. My one brother, Donna, is going off to explore. Brendan needs a cuddle. And David is having a meltdown. And my mom is just grinning, oblivious to the whole thing. And it was so typical. I start out the show by saying she was an ordinary woman with an extraordinary outlook on life. And so I talk all about my parents' experience becoming Americans and all the shenanigans that ensued. And then Act 2 is the story of my mom's decline and me as a caregiver. And the apple pie story is in the show, as is the ticket to heaven. And at the end, mom is, she's in heaven and she's fully herself. And I'd like to say that when she did finally pass away, I surprised myself at how I was not overwhelmed with grief, because I realized that I had been grieving her for years. Dementia really is the long goodbye. But now I could remember her as the extraordinary woman that she was, and she could be herself again. And so it ends on a very, I hope, uplifting and inspiring note, but it's very funny and it's very poignant. And I did the world premiere in Ann Arbor just about a month ago, and there were standing ovations and people loved it. And said it's a personal story, but it has a universal appeal. So my plan, and if you know anyone who is looking to do a fundraising event, that's my model that I'm going to use, is that people will hire me, and instead of doing a gala or a golf outing or some other fundraising event that will have a theater, maybe do a VIP reception or something and have sponsors, and then I'll do the show, which is total about just under 2 hours, and then maybe a talk back or some Q&A or something afterwards. And then what I'd love to do is have that as a fundraising performance. And then the next day do a matinee that would be a community event, so that the recipients of the charity that benefited from this, all the participants could come and see the show at zero or very low cost. And so that's what I'd love to do. So if you know of any organizations, I would love to come to Iowa or the surrounding communities, the surrounding states, to put on the show. It's a one-woman show, so the cast party budget is really small. But it is a great time, and the reviews have been wonderful. On my website, which is breedamiller.com, there is a page that's just about the show. It's just being updated now, and where I'm at is I'm having a video demo reel created with some footage from the show, so that people can get a sense of the caliber of the performance of the show itself, and that we can get things booked for 2022. So thank you for asking.
Well, while you were giving that awesome answer and explanation of what it's, what took you through that process, we did have 2 questions come in.
Okay.
I want to honor your time. I didn't know if you had enough time to answer them or how.
Go right ahead. Let's go. I'm on a roll.
You are very gracious. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have a question. As a provider, how can I provide support to a caregiver who has multiple siblings with different ideas of how mom is being cared for, resulting in additional stress on the primary caregiver?
Oh boy, do I hear that one. The one brother, remember, that I said should not be named. Yeah, when I said to hospice whether we should get a hospital bed for mom, and my mom was very tiny, she was like 110 pounds. And they said, as long as I could manage her in her own bed, she would be most comfortable, but we'd have a wedge pillow that would help. I said, okay, fine. So the cranky brother shows up and says, well, I can't believe you don't have a hospital bed. They're much more comfortable than regular beds. They wouldn't have them in the hospital if they weren't more comfortable. And which I find absolutely hysterical. And I was just speechless. And so I know that feeling of the lone wolf who knows it all and who has a different opinion. So what I did at that point was I had, with the hospice group that we worked with, there was a team and they were wonderful. And there was a hospice social worker. And I called her and I said, Linda, what can I do? And most of it is education. There was at one point where this same brother didn't understand end of life care, which I didn't understand until it was explained to me that when the body is shutting down, that it actually can cause more pain if you encourage people to eat if they don't want to. And so I was instructed by the nurses in hospice that if mom asked for something, to absolutely give it to her, but don't try to make her eat or don't try to make her do anything, because it could cause her more discomfort and more pain, which I had no idea. I didn't know anything. Well, the brother actually accused me of starving mom. It was horrible. It was just horrible. So anytime you're working, if you can have, as a provider, if you can provide, whether there's a family meeting or whether there's literature or there's something that can help back up whatever the treatment plan or the care plan is, so that it's not all on the shoulders of that primary caregiver to try and respond to someone who is, they don't know what they're talking about. But the other thing that I think about now in hindsight is I think they had a tremendous amount of guilt, because I was the one that was doing the heavy lifting. I was doing the caregiving, and maybe they felt this was something they could do. So I'm giving them grace, about that. But mostly it's ignorance. People don't know anything about end of life. They don't know what's normal. They don't know what to expect. And so to try and be gracious, but to be there as a resource and educate them. Does that help?
it helped me. I hope it helped. To give people grace, I think, is an awesome, because I think a lot of times that is why, like you said, they feel helpless, guilty, whatever feelings, and that's how it comes across.
And grief comes out in ugly ways sometimes.
Yeah.
People
So
don't
we
know.
have one final question, Breeda. So there's a question about care. She's the only child. She lost her last parent in February, and she's been the caretaker for her husband for Parkinson's and other health issues. She's just wondering how to cope.
So one thing that might, if you're not already doing it, there are different online support groups for every specific illness you could have. I know that the Parkinson's, I'm not sure if it's Parkinson's.com or Parkinson's disease or Parkinson's Foundation. There are support groups for every single illness or problem that a person could have. You might think about going online and seeing if there's if nothing else, a group of people that understand where you're at and that you can chat with back and forth online. Now, that said, I'll tell you, there are some support groups online that are better than others, and some that are well managed and there's really good behavior and they're a positive, supportive place to be. And others, it's not a good environment. So you want to like read it, get the vibe, see if it's something you're comfortable with. And if it's not, exit. Just don't stay there. Don't add toxic behavior to your life. And I say that about any online program or organization, because people behind the keyboard sometimes have bad behavior. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. You want to do that. But how you can cope is that if you have a circle of friends who could help, if people, because I will say this, is that I have never felt so isolated in my life as when I was caring for my mom, even though I had a house full here. But when you're potty training children, there's a group of moms that get together, right? And maybe you're talking about potty training, or are you using pull-ups, or are you going with cloth diapers, or whatever you might be? Well, when I was caring for my mom and she developed incontinence, no one said to me, so do you like the Depends? Or what about those other brands? What do you think? Are they working? No, I didn't even know at one point, oh, that would save a lot of washing if I got those disposable underwear. And that's another thing, is that anyone over the age of 3, you should not use the word diaper. It's not helpful. It makes people feel ashamed. I used disposable underwear, and it's a mouthful, but it was a good way to have some dignity and to make my mom just not feel uncomfortable about having to make that transition. So I would say reach out either online or to friends if they have offered help, to accept it, because that's a really hard thing to do. But I think it's something that can make a big difference. You won't feel so alone. And I'm so sorry. It sounds like you're having a really hard time.
Once again, Breeda, you just have a very gentle soul, and it just comes across, and I just have enjoyed so much listening to your stories, your answers to these questions. And Breeda is coming to us all the way from Michigan.
Yes,
So,
and there's no snow here right now, so I guess that's good.
And you did talk about your website. Did you want to mention anything about your Facebook?
Yeah, so I have a couple of things on Facebook. I have the Caregiver Coffeebreak, which is a page on Facebook that I just post uplifting things. I have rules. It either has to be funny, clever, or really interesting. And those are the things that get posted on the Caregiver Coffeebreak, so that you might want to check that out on Facebook. My personal page is also available. It's Breeda Kelly Miller. And I just posted a live this morning because I was ready really early. So I figured I would do a live on Facebook because I already had done my hair and everything. So, well, let's make good use of this time. I'm time zone impaired, by the way, so I'm really grateful we're all matched here on the same time. But my website itself is easy. It's breedamiller.com, and it is filled with videos and blogs and stories. There is a tab there about the show. Right now, it's still under construction, so it's not looking so good, but you could read about it. You might find it interesting. There's also a page, a tab called Resources, and there's links to click on for lots of stuff. There is a place if you want to buy my books, that's there. That's really the only thing that costs anything. Everything else is just free and available. And I use that as a resource. If you are thinking about hiring me to do something like this or for speaking at an event, I have a separate website, and that is breedamillerspeaking.com. And that talks about my different speaking programs. And if you're in need of a speaker, a keynote speaker, I would love to do that. And I would love to come in person. I got my third booster the other day, so I'm feeling, ready to go.
All right. Well, I just posted in the chat our 4 door prize winners.
Great.
Stan Lemaster, Pam Sargent, Laura Schaefer, and David DeBarth.
Excellent.
And I will be in contact with them to
find out. Wait, the brown book is the Caregiver Coffeebreak book, and the blue one is Take a Break Before You Break. They're both good. But either one, whichever you like, and how you would like me to autograph it for you. If it's for you, I'm happy to send it to you. If sign your name on it. If you want to give it as a gift to someone, I can personalize it to them as well, whatever you like. And Jan, if you can just send me that information, so the mailing address of the person and then who it should be dedicated to, and I will sign those and I'll pop them in the mail, and life is good.
All right. Well, thank you so much once again.
My pleasure. Thank
you for having me.
Enjoyed
me. Our time together.
Enjoy
the rest of your day, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. I am going to go ahead and stop the recording just so that everybody knows. I'll start it back up when our second speaker starts at 11.